Okay, we're clear to start the meeting, President Rentz.
Awesome. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular virtual meeting for January 4th, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everybody to mute all of your other electronic devices that may be in earshot, and mute your microphone when you're not speaking to improve the sound quality of the meeting. Pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, public bodies may, in certain circumstances, hold entirely virtual public meetings without quorum physically present in any one location. In accordance with Governor Pritzker's current disaster proclamation and Executive Order 2021-32, I, as village president, hereby determine that in-person meetings of the Village Council are not practical or prudent at this time. And so for at least for the month of January, we're going to be virtual. Rob, could you do a roll call for attendance, please?
Certainly. Trustee Dahlman?
Here.
Trustee Swerk?
Here.
Trustee Dearborn?
Here.
Trustee Apatow?
Here.
Trustee Kripe?
Here.
Trustee Mancini?
Here.
President Rentz?
Present. Okay, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I will lead us in that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Thank you. Okay, Rob, you want to go ahead and check for quorums?
Yes. So the two regularly scheduled meetings are January 11th and the 18th. Do those dates look okay for everyone?
I may be 50-50 on the 18th, Rob. I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Rob, do we have a special meeting on the 25th, though?
We do. That would be a special closed session.
What time are you going to do that at?
To be determined, but was hoping to start a little earlier. Would that work for everybody? Typically after 5:30, but
yeah, please.
Window at 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Item 4 is public comment. Kristen, is there any? Okay, this is the time of the evening where attendees at the meeting or virtually can address Village Council on items that are not on tonight's agenda. So first off, we will turn to the waiting room, and Kristen, will you check and see if any live human beings would like to address council this evening?
Yes, President Rentz. So we do have members of the public in attendance in the Zoom call. So at this time, if you would like to comment on an item not on the agenda, please use the Zoom platform to raise your hand and you will be recognized at this time. Additionally, I'd like to state that Community Development Director David Schoen is participating in the meeting virtually at Village Hall in the conference room. So David, if there's anyone physically present in the conference room, will you please use the Zoom platform to raise your hand if they'd like to speak? President Rentz, there are no hands raised. Would also like to report that we received a public comment in email for tonight's meeting.
We'll go ahead and read that one then.
Okay, this email's from Terry Cross. Thank you for allowing me to comment this evening. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of you for your countless hours of service to the village. The work you're doing today will affect future generations of Winnetkans in ways that we probably cannot anticipate right now. I have lived in Winnetka for 32 years. My husband and I raised our family here and have always considered Winnetka a nearly ideal place to raise a family. As empty nesters, we're finding it not such a bad place to spend our retirement as well. I realize the Village Council has many challenges to consider as you go through the comprehensive planning process. I would like to ask that you prioritize sustainability. In my mind, there's nothing more consequential that we can be doing than working to reduce our impact on our lived environment. First, I'd like you to prioritize reducing our reliance on coal, which, as you probably already know, is the source of 89% of our power generation. We must work with IMEA to meaningfully increase the percentage of our electricity that is generated through renewable sources. More locally, we should seriously be thinking about a solar panel installation on top of the old landfill, consider wave power generation at the lakefront, and connect our grid to a community solar source of energy. Also, we should be pushing for village-wide composting to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. I believe that if the residents of Winnetka understood the impact that composting can have on our carbon footprint, they would want to participate. I'm sure there was a time several decades ago when the village-wide recycling was considered controversial, but none of us can imagine living without it now. Composting is the next step. There probably isn't anything simpler to do that has a large impact. The time is now. Thank you for your consideration. Let's keep our children and grandchildren in mind, and let's make them proud of our prescience as we make decisions that will impact their future.
Okay, well, thank you, Kristen. Any others there?
There are no additional public comments.
Gotcha. All right, item 5 this evening is reports. Show of hands for anybody who has a report as far as the trustee is concerned. Bob does. Okay, Bob, go ahead.
Just quickly, in following on that public comment, last night at the Landmark Preservation Commission, there was actually a proposal by the property owner of a local and national landmark here in town, pretty prominent residence, to install solar panels on his home, which was approved by the LPC. It actually was an advisory position the LPC had, because the homeowner has to go through Illinois landmarks and all this stuff. But in keeping with Mrs. Cross's comments there, we're probably going to see a lot more of that, down the road, I would think.
Sweet. Anyone else? Village manager, do you have any report?
Just briefly, reported to the council in middle December of emergency water main repair on Locust. That repair was successfully implemented, and costs will be finally reported to council at the second meeting in January. But the project was completed 2 or 3 days before the holidays hit, which I know the residents were grateful for. And Water and Electric did yeoman's work to pull it off.
Yes, they did. They were there for a long time. Great job.
Were there any surprises, Rob? I know that the pipe kept breaking before. Is that still an issue, or are we okay for now?
We have repaired the section of pipe that was breaking. We went beyond, the trouble zone to stabilize it, and it seems to be holding
Great.
well.
Thank you.
Sweet. All right, village attorney
No report tonight, thanks.
and village president, I have no report tonight. Okay, moving forward, approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to move an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Sorry, thought I unmuted. Trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yep.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Swerk.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. All right, I will now ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the village council minutes for November 23rd, 2021, special closed session, and December 7th, 2021, regular meeting. Approval of the warrant lists dated November 19th, 2021 through December 16th, 2021 in the amount of $684,461.33 and December 17th, 2021 through December 29th, 2021 in the amount of $1,058,253.48. Resolution number R1 2022 approving change order number 2 to the contract with Asplin Tree Expert Company for utility line clearance services for adoption. Resolution number R2, 2022, approving the purchase of a police vehicle for adoption. Resolution number R3, 2022, approving an intergovernmental agreement for the provision of mutual aid for snow removal services for adoption. Resolution number R4, 2022, approving change order number 1 to the contract with Maple Cable Construction Incorporated for directional boring work for adoption. Resolution number R5, 2022, approving a contract with American Combustion Service Incorporated for repairs to boiler number 7 for adoption. And resolution number R6, 2022, approving the purchase of a water electric backhoe loader for adoption. And resolution number R7, 2022, approving the purchase of a water electric vehicle for approvals. You're muted, Chris.
Thanks, Rob. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Mancini,
Yep.
trustee Kreip,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
yes,
trustee Dearborn.
yes,
All right, that motion carries. Thank you. All right, next item is ordinances and resolution. 8A, ordinance number M1, 2022. This is on 2 Golf Lane, and it's a variation. It's up for introduction and/or possibly adoption. The applicant has submitted a request for a front yard setback variation to allow construction of a 1-story addition. Previously, the ZBA had approved this with a 6-0 positive vote, and Community Development Director David Schoen is here to walk us through it. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, President Rentz and trustees. I'll just quickly run through a presentation as Kristen calls it up. The next slide, please. Next slide. The property is located on Hill Road at the intersection of Hill and Golf Lane. It's across the street from St. Faith, Hope and Charity School and Church. The property is zoned R2 single family residential. Next slide, please. There is an existing home on the property. As can be seen by these images, it's a corner lot, so we have front yards and a corner side yard on Hill Road and Golf Lane. Next slide, please. This is an image of the site plan. The proposed addition is a 6 by 10 square foot addition up in the black rectangle near the top of the site. It will be for a mudroom. I'll show you an image later showing where that is in relationship to the rest of the house. As you can see, the bulk of the house is already in the required front yard and corner side yard. So the small addition continues an extension of that. So they do need the front yard variation as indicated by this table. Next slide, please. We provided images of showing the location of where this addition is going along Hill Road. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, it's a mudroom. The mudroom's going to be located off the kitchen where mudrooms typically are located. It also provides the homeowner easy access to their basement from this location. Next slide, please. These are the elevations then showing the addition. Next slide. As President Rentz indicated, the ZBA discussed the application at its December 13th meeting and unanimously recommended approval. Basically, they felt given the placement of the house and its current condition, the location of the addition met all of the standards for granting a variation. I should also note we received no written or verbal public comments for this application. At this point, I'd be happy to answer questions or after you hear from the applicant.
Any questions for David?
I have no
David, if I-
questions, thanks.
David, if I read this correctly, currently the setback there is 19 feet and they're going to 14 feet. So you're talking about a 5-foot differential from existing condition?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
But part of that is because that lot line along Hill Road is at an angle. So the house, you could tell from the image.
Yeah.
In terms of where
Yeah,
it's.
I guess. Yeah, my point on it is that the zoning code is, it's a variation of 35.5 feet, but they're really only moving the wall 5 feet toward hill.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Jump in, others? Okay, that's good there. Is there any public comment on this item? Kristen, can you please check?
If there are members of the audience who'd like to comment on this, please use the Zoom platform to raise your hand at this time. I see no hands raised, President Rentz.
Okay. Okay, we'll bring it back up here. Any additional comments, questions, thoughts?
Get it done.
I have
Yeah.
no questions. This is John. I would entertain introduction and adoption.
Okay. Thanks, John. Anybody else?
I'm with John.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
the
show of
only thing-
hands for the introduction adoption thing. Doing it all.
I
tonight?
can't raise my hand, but it's up.
Yeah, we heard from you already, John.
All right.
Okay, then we'll move forward that way. So, okay, here we go. This is where I miss having Rob right next to me. Okay, do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M1 2022?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes,
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Apatow.
Yes,
That motion carries, and then now I need a motion to adopt ordinance number M1 2022.
so moved.
second,
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes,
trustee Apatow,
yes,
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
trustee Swerk.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. If the applicant is in the room or anything, good. I can't tell if they're here or not. Good luck with your new addition, and thanks for your time. All right, moving forward, item B, ordinance number M2 2022, amending a special use permit to allow playground for Christ Church. This is the church on the hill at 784 Sheridan Road. The applicant has submitted a request for an amendment to the special use permit to install a playground. Community Development Director David Schoen will review this.
Next slide, please. So this property is along Sheridan Road between Humboldt Avenue and Lloyd Place. The property is zoned R3 single family residential. Next slide, please. It is the home of Christ Church on the Hill. These are images of the church from Humboldt Avenue at Sheridan Road. Next slide. This map shows the location of the proposed playground equipment, as well as a photo showing the location of it. As you can see, the location is off of an existing patio off of the rear of the building. As the applicant testified at the public hearings at the lower bodies, it's already an area, a play area that kids will play in. They just wanted to add a structure in this location. Next slide, please. This shows the proposed layout of the proposed playground equipment, and again, location of where it will be going on the site. Next slide, please. And this is an image of the proposed playground equipment that was presented to both the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Plan Commission. Next slide. Both commissions reviewed the special use permit request. There were no variation requests associated with this application. Neither body received any written or verbal comments from the public. After hearing from the applicant, each body unanimously recommended approval of the application as presented. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Rob,
Question, is this for neighborhood use or is it just for their school use or private use? Do we know?
It's for the church's use. They have programs during the week and on the weekends and activities. As I said already, during services or after services, the kids will be in this area playing as they represented. So the main purpose is for the church's use.
Okay.
others?
Looks
Not
great.
seeing any. Okay, Kristen, can we check the room out there to see if anybody would like to speak on this item?
Please use the Zoom platform to raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment on this item. President Rentz, there's no hands raised.
That's cheating, Apatow.
Adorable.
Put the kid back, Rob, go away.
Okay,
I have to agree with you there.
yeah, really. There's no public comment. Any deliberation on this item, guys? We okay with it as it is?
Great.
Not seeing anything else there. Okay, so I'm assuming it's okay to waive introduction on this one as well?
Agree.
Yes.
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. That's good. All right, do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M2 2022?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second,
Roll call vote?
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
yes.
trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Swerk.
Yes.
Awesome. That motion carries. All right, we'll move forward. May I have a motion to adopt ordinance number M2 2220? I'm sorry, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Apatow.
Yes.
That motion carries. All right. Good luck to the church with their new addition there. All right, item C, under item 8 is a public hearing, the Walden Final Plan Development with Exceptions. A public hearing on the approval of the Walden Final Plan Development with Exceptions has been advertised for tonight's meeting. The public hearing is now open, and I'll turn it over to David to run us through our paces on this one.
So yes, as President Rentz indicated, this is the plan development. It's our first one under our new plan development regulations. In addition to the plan development, there is also a final plat of subdivision that you will consider when you also consider adoption of the ordinance at a future meeting. The plan development continues to consist of the same exceptions which are listed here, and I'll briefly go over in a bit. Next slide, please. At the final plan stage, the council's consideration of the final plan is determine if the proposal of the final plan for the development conforms substantially to the approved preliminary plan. Next slide, please. Given a question I received earlier this evening, I thought it would be important just to remind the council and the public in terms of the plan development process. The top row summarizes the overall process. Concept plan review, preliminary plan review, and then final plan review. Obviously, the council considered a concept plan review. We did go through the preliminary plan review process, which is then the second row. So after staff review, the design review board and the plan development commission considered the application. This particular one, the applicant amended, made a significant change to it. Having gone through that process, presented the change again to both of those bodies. At that point, both bodies unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plan, and then the council considered those recommendations, and the council then itself unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plan. So tonight, we're at the final plan stage, which requires staff review, which we have done and have completed it and have determined it's ready for council's consideration. So tonight it's for the council to consider introduction of the ordinance to approve the final plan. If at this stage the council would find that what the applicant is presenting is not in substantial conformity, the council could work directly with the applicant to address those issues, or you also under the code have the ability to refer it back to one of the two advisory bodies. And next slide, please. Again, this is just showing the location of the property along Green Bay Road. I just want to note as we talk about the one change that has been made, its location is on the south side of the building, which is along that large condominium building to the south. Next slide, please. So here's the site plan. The site plan is basically the same with some minor changes to a layout of the sidewalk and some other curb lines, but nothing that staff would consider substantial. Next slide, please. So the applicant, did refine the building design. Really, the most substantial change, if you want to consider that, is that along that south elevation, in response to concerns from a neighbor in the condominium building to the south, the applicant reduced the amount of window glass area. That neighbor had concerns about the amount of light coming from those windows. And as you can see here, that the proposed plan is on the left, the proposed final plan is on the left, and the approved preliminary plan is on the right. And you can see the change where that common stairwell is in the building, that the applicant has reduced the amount of window to reduce the amount of light that can be seen from the adjacent building. Other than that, the plan is really basically the same. Next slide, please. And as I stated earlier, the applicant is requesting, continues to request the exact same variation or exceptions related to the project, which the village council approved during the preliminary plan. Next slide. So you have an ordinance to consider for introduction. It approves the final plan with exceptions. It also includes many of the same conditions that were included in the preliminary plan approval. One is the limit use of the roof deck to just the third floor residents. $18,000 contribution to the village for an EV electric vehicle charging station, which the applicant would provide at time of receiving the building permit. On-site electric vehicle charging station, which the applicant is showing in the garage. that the association would be responsible for or the development will be responsible for the installation and maintenance of the landscaping over the long term. And then the last one is a condition that village staff will have to approve the condominium declaration. And the ordinance includes those items that the village will want to see in those documents. We have reviewed a preliminary draft, which does include those. So we anticipate that not being any issue. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Rob, go ahead.
Dave, can you put that, those two, the buildings side by side again, the proposed and the new? It looked a little bit, and maybe I'm just not looking at this correctly, but it just looks quite a bit different from the standpoint of finishings. I know you're talking about glass. I'm looking at headers and it just looked like it's been planed down a bit.
It looks that way by how it's been drawn. It's really in terms of the materials, what is being called out is really basically the same. It's more like how it's been drawn.
So the windows haven't reduced in size except for that.
Unfortunately, it's part me trying to put two images together and having them and copying and stretching and yeah.
And that's what we're looking at is which is this ways this facing again?
This is the south elevation. It's facing the south. So to the condominium building to the south, you recall there's a townhome building to the north. This is facing the condominiums to the south.
Mm-hmm.
And as an applicant made the change in the window side in response to a member of the public that came to a number of meetings expressing concerns about light coming from those windows at the stairwell.
Well, I guess that's my question. Are we concerned about, I mean, I think it makes it looks a lot plainer. Are we concerned about that? I mean,
You can't even see it, Rob.
okay. All right. That's what I was wondering, Saul. Okay, that's fine then.
I thought the same thing at first.
Okay.
So, Bob.
David, quick question. I can't recall, did we talk about, I think we talked about, I don't know if there was any provision regarding the sidewalk and any signage or pedestrian safety measures that they were going to consider, because you come out of that and you come up the ramp, as I recall. And I just don't remember if there was any commitment on that front.
So in working with the village engineering staff and planning staff, we did look at that in terms of making sure the plant materials would be set back away from that driveway to give adequate view of vehicles coming out of there. In answer to your question, there wasn't a particular condition placed on them in terms of signage or anything like that.
Is there parking immediately to the north and south? In other words, could you be exiting and there'd be cars parked just to the side of the entrance?
Well, currently, I believe there's no parking along a portion of that. We'll have to evaluate that once the driveway is put in.
Okay, well, it may be too late, but I hope it's a safe egress and ingress.
What do you mean it may be too late?
Well, if there are no conditions, I mean, what can you do at this point if it was determined that it was, not as safe as it otherwise could be?
Why don't we bring
I
the
thought you meant
applicant
in
up?
terms of the parking on the street. I thought your question was about parking on the street.
Well, no, it was really the exiting from the building as you go up the ramp. One, you have a sidewalk, so you have pedestrians. And two, if you're going on to Green Bay Road there and there are cars parked to your right, the sight line may not be all that great. So you have kind of two potential risky issues, I think.
Hey, Kristen, why don't we bring Rick Swanson up so we can
Yeah.
him respond to this as well?
Will do. Rick, I'm going to promote you to panelist and you'll get a message about granting access to your microphone and camera. If you could do that, please.
Hey, Dave, while he's coming up, how close is this to Westmore Road? I'm just trying to look at the map.
To Westmore,
Hmm.
it's some distance.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there's,
It's several hundred feet going that way.
okay, so people won't be parking on Westmore is my point.
No,
That's a bad area.
Did you have a question for me?
Yes, Rick, hi, Rick. We were, trustee Dearborn had some concerns and some questions about the vehicular ingress and egress and the safety component relative to a public sidewalk there.
Mhm.
Can you speak to that and can you possibly elaborate on what your thinking was as far as the public safety issue with cars coming and going and crossing a public walk there?
Well, thank you. By the way, Happy New Year to all of you. We gave a lot of thought to that, Mr. President, and number one, we're putting in a radiant heat system under that driveway right off the bat to make sure that we don't have people sliding in and out. We do meet the slope requirement. We had to work on that, but we were able to meet the slope requirement. Probably the most important thing that came up at a number of meetings, and we've addressed it, is how the landscaping is planned. We had, you may recall at one point, we even had a wall up there. And that was a big no-no. We took that out, thought it was a nice aesthetic thing, but it's not a very practical thing from a pedestrian perspective. So we took that out. And the way we planned our landscaping allows a view corridor. We call it a view triangle. Some communities, I know, for example, in Scottsdale, for example, we have to have a view corridor so that you could see down the street in both directions. So by the time you get to the top at that driveway or at the sidewalk, you're able to easily see down the sidewalk in both directions. As far as signage is concerned, we didn't talk a lot about signage. I'm not aware of any signage in any other areas, but I mean, we're open to anything as long as it's it's something that that's aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't become a nuisance.
I have a comment real quick, going on with Bob's concerns. I'm doing a street view of what the property has. And it appears that there's no parking anytime sign right outside of it. To the south of it on Green Bay and north of it is actually a fire hydrant. So there's no parking there either.
Right, we understand the parking. First off, we're not going to have any parking in front of the hydrant regardless. We can't. So I'd love to not have the hydrant there because we could pick up a parking space, but we can't. We're not. When we did our parking calculations, we absolutely did not take that we didn't use that as part of our calculations.
Yeah, I think his concern was actually if there were cars parked there, that it'd be hard for someone to see left and right when coming out onto Green Bay. So it benefits his concern.
Right. So in other words, Kim, you're saying that as you go out, the traffic going southbound, which is what you'd be most concerned about probably, that there's no parking as you're looking southbound as you're exiting.
Right.
Okay.
And this street view, and maybe it's changed since the street view is taken on Google, but there's a no parking anytime sign on the west side of Green Bay headed south. So right outside.
Okay.
Out.
Good.
And on the other side, if you were to be turning north, there's a fire hydrant there. So there wouldn't be blockage of a car parked there.
So you can see Green Bay Road.
Yeah.
Right.
Traffic is the point. Okay.
Good. That's a really valid point, Bob, because, and Kim, you do this, you come out in Westmore all the time on the Green Bay. It's not good there. And that's why I was wondering where guests are parking. Are there spaces underneath or where do you see guests parking at the building?
Are you asking me?
I am.
Oh, okay, sorry. Right now, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've got room for one parking space out in front of our building on the street. Is that correct?
yeah, we could. Yeah,
Well, no, I think that's what we have. I don't recall having any more than one when we were all, when we were finished. I mean, I'm looking at, and this maybe comes back to the point about the signs. I'm looking on Google Earth right now. And there are signs of no parking anytime. What that's meant for is so that people, and I think that was your point, Kim. The idea is to keep people from parking there so you don't obstruct that view corridor. And I would agree with that. And I think the way we did our planning for that is that we don't have any problem putting a sign up. In fact, it's public property. We wouldn't have the ability to stop you if you wanted to put it there anyway. But I can tell you that we're not going to have any parking in front of the hydrants. And I think the closest we could park is that's why I thought there was only one space, was closer to the south as opposed to the north, because you've got another driveway down there. But the view corridor has to be taken into consideration regardless, and that's even done during the engineering review.
But there's no real assigned there's no assigned parking underneath for guests. So it's gonna.
There's parking in the front yard area. I believe there's 2 parking spaces.
Okay.
And
Actually 3, Rick. There's 2 on one side and 1.
oh, you're correct. Thank you. I'm still on Google Earth, so. So we've got 3 parking spaces. One of them, of course, are handicap, and then we thought if we could pick up one more space on the street, we'd be good. We meet the requirement under that.
Okay.
Yeah, Rob, actually, if you look on agenda packet page 299, you'll see a little site plan there, and you'll see if you squint, you can see the parking lines.
Yeah, I have it. I just wanted to make sure those weren't turnarounds, that they're actual parking and everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Good on that?
Yep.
Other questions for either David or Rick?
I was just gonna say, I think the building's gorgeous. It's really beautiful, and I'm excited to, as someone who lives in the Hubbard Woods area and drives past it all the time, I'm excited to see it there.
Thank you. Very kind. I would, if I may, just for a moment, address the south elevation so you kind of know the history. I think part of your problem might be you're looking at 2 different forms of delineation, meaning just how the brick is applied on one drawing versus another. But I can tell you that they're absolutely the same building. You're right about that one section in the middle, but that was done as President Rins pointed out. We had a neighbor that was vocal, very nice. Her biggest concern is that with the stairwell lights would be on all the time, and she lives there, so she didn't want the lights flashing in. So we agreed to reduce the amount of fenestration in that area. So we had a window that no one was ever going to see.
Yeah.
And we had an opportunity to address it. It was a simple thing for us to do. That's the only reason the difference.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
I also just wanted to say that, you've worked hard. The original iteration of this that we saw at the Plan Development Commission, was a substantially different design with the, parking coming around the back. And then you modified the design to address neighborhood concerns. It's obviously taken a lot of time, and, I think it's a better design, and appreciate the effort.
We agree, and thank you. I feel like we've established a nice relationship with our adjacent neighbors, and we're looking forward to working with them through the process. They've been terrific since our approval, and I think it's been a positive result.
Well, now we can see. Let's see how much truth there is in that statement.
I'm not expecting there to be a lot of love in the next year and a half, but
yeah. Let's open this up for public comment, because I know there's people in the waiting room who may want to speak on this issue.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to shut up then.
I'm just kidding, of course, but I'm not kidding about opening it up for public comment. Can we go into the waiting room and see if folks want to respond to this? Kristen?
If you'd like to make a public comment at this time, please raise your hand on the Zoom platform. I don't see any hands raised, President Rents.
Okay, then I guess we can close the public comment, bring it back for final deliberation. So any last thoughts, comments? Kim, I saw you raising your hand. Why don't you go ahead? Oh, Bob.
I was just going to say, and I agree with Tina and Kim that this is really from the get-go, I think, from the original concept review, been really a nice, well-designed project. You went through with the neighbors. It's informative, I think, for other plan developments down the road. It's always good to work with your neighbors and figure it out. And Rick, you figured out how to do that. And the fact that we don't have anyone from Walden here, we don't have any of your neighbors on Green Bay Road here. I don't know if that means they all love it or not love it, but they're not here. And this is not a town of wallflowers. So I think that's probably a good sign. So I'm really enthused about this. And I think the process, at least from maybe our perspective, went well, maybe not from yours, but from ours, I think it went well.
Okay. Others?
Yeah.
No, this is John, and it's been a great first experience going through this PUD process. Mr. Swanson did a great job on the council's suggestions, the lower boards and the neighbors, and I look forward to getting this moving ahead.
Okay. Anybody else? Andy, were you going to jump in there?
Yeah, I just agree with Bob and John. Rick, you've been great from the beginning. You didn't come in asking for an unreasonable thing. You presented a beautiful building that fit the neighborhood, and along the way you made appropriate adjustments. That's how it should be done. Really, it's been great working with you on this, so thank you.
I'll agree as well. Rick, you did a great job. That's the way it's supposed to work. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close that and then we'll bring it in.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
You're welcome. Okay, let's move forward here and see if we got what we need to get this thing moving. This is ordinance number M3 2022. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance number M3 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Swerk.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. And Rick, thank you. So we'll see you all later there. Hold on here just a second. I don't think we have much left. Okay, old business, we have none. New business, we have none. Appointments, there are none this evening. In closed session, there is none. And I would venture to guess that this is a record of running through a 300-page agenda packet in less than an hour. That's pretty good. Way to go, guys. I guess this Zoom does have something good going for it after all, right?
And also good lower boards and a good process. It's a great.
Amen. It really helps to have good people feeding us the work like this. So, okay, well, all that being said, once I get to the next page, we can probably close this meeting up. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Mancini,
Yes.
trustee Kripe.
Yes.
Motion carries and we are done for the evening. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
everyone. Stay
Good night.
safe.